Today I'll go over my in-depth review of the DYU Cycle King750, a simple, low-priced, 26-inch fat tire e-bike with a rear hub motor outputting 960 watts and a 960 watt-hour battery. First, let's go over what actually comes with this bike and what you'll need to do to get it going. Like just about any e-bike, this one ships in a large, sturdy cardboard box. It's very mildly disassembled and padded well to prevent damage during shipping. The box is a bit large to carry, so you might want to have your delivery person place it somewhere that you could unbox and assemble it. Otherwise, you'll probably have to drag it or load it onto a dolly or something yourself. The package includes the mostly assembled bike, the charger, an instruction manual, and a toolkit. The toolkit is sufficient to get you through the entire assembly and adjustment process without requiring any other tools, but you will need something to adjust the tire pressure before you get riding. Assembling the bike involves attaching the front wheel, handlebar, headlight, pedals, seat post, and kickstand, all of which is quite simple to do. You can also choose to attach a rear reflector and a little bell that both come with the bike, but I just chose to leave those off. Before riding, you'll want to make sure the derailleur is adjusted correctly so that you can engage all the gears, and I'll cover what adjustments are possible on this derailleur later in the review. The King750's electronic drive comes from a rear hub motor with a factory max output of 960 watts. It is controlled by cadence sensing at the crank for pedal assist or by twist throttle on the handlebar. Both the pedal assist and twist throttle are capable of giving the max power output of 960 watts, and both are capable of giving the max powered speed of the bike, which is controller limited at 28 miles per hour. The ability to output the max power and achieve the max speed of the bike by throttle is in contrast to most bikes, where the throttle will only give you partial power and partial speed. So that is very nice to see on this bike, and it does make for quite a bit more convenience if you want to cruise down a road at a very nice pace without having to pedal at all. The 960 watt power output on the bike is a healthy amount for getting around. In fact, it's so healthy that I wouldn't mind if it could be turned down a bit to achieve a more efficient balance between pedaling power and electric power while in pedal assist mode, because this thing wants to go. All three pedal assist modes provide the full 960 watt power output, but with lower speed limits. So mode 1 will zoom up to 15 miles per hour when you pedal, mode 2 will zoom up to 22 miles per hour, and mode 3 will zoom up to 28 miles per hour. And by zoom, I mean if you're pedaling, the bike will be trying its hardest to reach 15, 22, or 28 miles per hour respectively. So that's a pretty basic form of pedal assist controller logic, but once you get used to it, it does feel totally manageable, especially since any inputs at the twist throttle will override the pedal assist logic and simply provide the amount of power dictated by your twist throttle input, which is very handy for getting the bike to just help out a little bit for more efficient cruising while pedaling, or for telling the bike to get moving quickly without having to pedal. The twist throttle speed limit also changes based on the mode the controller is in, just like the pedal assist speed limit changes. Input signal at the twist throttle is smoothed, so that you never get twitchy throttle response. So when just giving quick little twists, you might not get that full 960 watts immediately, but holding the throttle at full will get the power output up to 960 watts in just a couple of seconds. Overall, I did find the power output on the bike to be satisfactory, with my least favorite part being the fact that the pedal assist wants to power hard no matter what, but my favorite part being that the twist throttle can give little power, max power, or anywhere in between without having any conflicts with the pedal assist like on some other bikes. In my opinion, that is how a twist throttle should work on every bike, but it just doesn't. Most bikes have them dumbed down. The King750 is equipped with a nicely sized 960 watt-hour battery, which is a good amount of capacity at this bike's price point. But how well does it actually work? I ran a few different tests to find out what kind of range one can actually expect from this battery. One test I performed was the ride it like I normally would test, in which I did exactly that. I used a mixture of pedal assist and throttle and just rode the bike to run errands and get around. The test resulted in a ride time of 2 hours and 58 minutes with a range of 46.6 miles. So that's what I'd reasonably expect from the battery for the average use case. The other test I ran was more of a torture test, where I had the bike climb under its own power for 10 consecutive miles to see if that would just kill the battery in one go or cause any overheating issues. It neither killed the battery nor caused overheating issues, which was great to see. After that climb, the battery still had another 13 miles in it, which was impressive since e-bikes tend to really struggle with such long sustained climbs like that. The King750 comes with one method of charging, a 150 watt AC charger that you can plug into a wall outlet, inverter, or generator. With this charger, the 960 watt-hour battery will fully charge in roughly 6.5 hours. Not very quick, but not terribly slow at this price point, and 6.5 hours is reasonable for commuting. If you're going to work, plug it in, and by the time you're done, it should be fully charged. One very nice thing about charging the King750's battery is that it can be removed from the bike and charged on its own without any additional adapters required. This makes it way easier to charge up the bike at work or wherever you end up taking it. For myself, this was super convenient because there are no outlets on the outside of my work building, so if I need to charge something, I have to do it in my office. And lugging a bike up the stairs every day is pretty inconvenient, so just popping the battery out and carrying it upstairs is way easier. DYU Cycle does not list replacement batteries in their website. However, it is a JTEC battery with a JTEC model number on it, so if you end up really needing an additional or replacement one, you might have some luck just requesting one through JTEC. Of course, I would also recommend just hitting up DYU Cycle support and seeing if they can send a replacement or additional battery. The King750 is a hardtail bike with a simple but decent suspension fork in the front and a shock absorption seat post. Being a hardtail bike, I was a little concerned that the bike might lack some off-road capability, but once I tried it, I was happy to find that due to the geometry and lightweight of the bike, the rear end is very easy to control and doesn't get wild when riding off-road. The wheelbase is rather compact compared to similar fat tire e-bikes I've had, which places the rear wheel more underneath the rider, making it very easy to stay in control of the rear end while riding off-road. To help things further, the shock absorption seat post does provide a functional semblance of rear suspension while seated on the bike, which really does take the edge off of imperfect riding surfaces and is way better than having a hardtail without a shock absorption seat post. The front fork is simple and has a travel lockout and spring preload adjustment, so not very much adjustment to tailor it to your preference, but I found it capable of doing the job for novice level trails, and with careful line selection, it was capable of carrying real speed. It is easy to overwhelm the fork and bottom it right out if you really crash into harsh landings, so I'd prefer to keep this bike on mild to moderate trails where things are nice and flowy. Trails littered with fist-sized rocks and smaller were not a problem, largely thanks to the fat tires on the bike that are capable of absorbing imperfections in the riding surface, but boulder-sized stuff could definitely make the fork unhappy if you don't finesse your way over or around them. Both the front and rear brakes are hydraulic discs on the King750, and they seemed to be plenty strong for novice level riding. There was no pulsation or vibration in the brakes, which made feeling out the traction while braking an easy and pleasant experience. The calipers are not floating calipers, nor are the discs floating discs. Of course, the brakes on this bike won't feel anywhere near as grabby as a high-end mountain bike with lightweight, thin tires, but for a bike in this price range, with this tire size, they're relatively good. The King750 rides on 26x4 all-terrain fat tires. This setup is great for a bike that might have to ride across a wide variety of surfaces, from pavement to gravel or even sand. While having such huge wheels and tires does make the bike significantly heavier and less maneuverable than a thin tire mountain bike, it does actually make it easier to ride for the average person or biking novice. Bumpy, loose, or low traction surfaces present far less of a problem to these huge tires, and that's why you see them on most e-bikes these days. They're just very versatile, and you don't have to be a great rider to go ride around anywhere and have some fun, or just get through an area without drama. When pedaling without electric power though, you will feel the massive weight and drag of these tires, so I wouldn't plan on going for a ride without electric power on any of these fat tire e-bikes. Overall, my handling assessment of this bike is that it is very easy to ride, very pleasant and confidence inspiring, and is actually a bike that you can honestly go out and do some trails with. Many fat tire bikes are marketed as such, but this one really delivers and is something that could be more than just a commuter. The King750 has a full frame with a straight handlebar on a non-tilting stem with aluminum flat pedals and the aforementioned shock absorption seat post. The left side handlebar controls include the front brake lever and the bike controller buttons, while the right side handlebar controls include a twist throttle, the rear brake, and the single gear shift. From a riding position standpoint, the bike definitely feels less cruiser and more mountain bike. The riding position definitely places you on top of the bike, and it does not feel at all like you're sitting down inside the bike. The non-tilting stem and straight handlebar makes the riding position very middle of the road, as in it isn't perfectly upright and relaxed, or very hunched over and aggressive. The grips on the handlebar are the now typical paddle-shaped style, and these ones were comfortable on my hands. This shape of grip can either be a hit or a miss, but these ones felt right, and the level of grip was good. My only slight complaint with the control setup is that I'd rather see a left side thumb throttle than a right side twist throttle on this style of bike. Having come off of my last bike having a left side thumb throttle, I really found it to just be a lot superior. A right side twist throttle just gives too much for the right hand to have to worry about while riding a bike like this. It's really nothing against this bike in particular, since so many bikes are set up with the right hand twist throttle, but I'd definitely like to see more bikes switch to the left side thumb throttle, and I'd be hoping to see that in future bikes from DYU Cycle. The gear shift is a simple and typical Shimano unit with push button upshift and sliding paddle downshift. This is a simple, modest setup, and it definitely isn't the best for spirited trail riding, but it gets the job done. Of course, a paddle shift system would be preferable, but at this price point, with everything else on the bike being so nice, it's easy to forgive a lower end shifter, especially since it works just fine, engaging all the gears with reasonable precision once it is adjusted. The adjustments include 2 travel stops on the derailleur, which you'll want to set so that you get full engagement of all the gears on the cassette, and a simple B screw on the back, which you'll want to set so that the shifting system is neither too slack and lazy, nor too tight and buzzy. As mentioned before, the shock absorption seat post is quite welcome on this hardtail bike because it travels to allow give in the seat post so that the ride is comfortable while going over bumpy terrain. The seat itself is also reasonably comfortable. Of course, it's no cruiser couch, but it didn't make me hate sitting down either. I found the aluminum flat pedals to be appropriate for this style of bike. Since the bike did end up having reasonable off-road capability, a lot of the riding I did with it ended up being in the trails having fun. Of course, I did end up with plenty of pedal strikes on rocks along the way that the aluminum pedals didn't care about at all. Sure, I ended up with some scratches in the coating, but no cracking or shattering, which I've seen plenty of on your typical cheapo plastic flat pedals. The lighting on the King750 is very simple, which if you ask me, is welcome on this style of bike. The lighting is just a small, low-draw LED headlight. It is not a very bright unit, but it has a good usable pattern thanks to being a projector lens unit, and it will allow you to see if you get caught out in the dark. Any aftermarket light setup is going to be much brighter than what this bike comes with, but at the price point of this bike, you'll probably have money left over to accessorize the bike any way you like. At just under $1,300, this bike has a very reasonable price tag for the quality of bike that it is. It's a simple bike, but after owning this thing, I'd really struggle to want to purchase something more high-end because it checked a lot of boxes for me. It's light enough that I could pack it around in my mobile living setup without any thoughts given to strapping it down or anything. Just like a non-electric bicycle, I just heave it into the trailer and call it good. And that hasn't been the case with some of my other e-bikes. Typically they are a lot heavier, and that does require them to be secured just like motorcycles. Another thing that I greatly appreciated about the King750 is that it had enough off-road ability that I didn't feel the need to carry around an additional mountain bike or pit bike. This thing can at least do the trails out at the places I frequent in a manner that is actually sporty and fun rather than sketchy. Of course, the large battery on this thing made it a very capable commuter and errand bike. That means it is truly a solid all-rounder at a very good price. Overall, right now, at the sub $1,500 price point, this bike is one of the sweeter deals out there for sure. Definitely give it a look at the link in the description or in the pinned comment.